Hello and welcome to another episode of the Citizens of Lorcana podcast, a podcast where we invite you to be a part of their world. This week we are catching up with Adara and going over lots of reveals and reviewing and ranking our favorite legendaries. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Hey everyone, welcome to another week. Last week we had a chance to reveal not one, not two, but 3 brand new cards for Ursula's return, and it already feels like a lifetime ago. So this week we are joined by Adara to catch up on her TCG journey. And also, if you're watching YouTube, you probably noticed this already, but we are recording video for the first time that's not live. So if you're listening to us on our podcast, it sounds just the same. But if you're on YouTube, hi, nice to see you. Adara, what's going on?
Hey guys, it has been too long since I have been on here.
For real.
That is my fault. That is not your fault.
I mean, now technically it was just last week, but that was only for the card reveals. So, but usually you're really busy this time of year, so it's okay. We allow it.
Is there any time of year that you're not really busy? I guess that's a better question.
Not particularly. It's always something or other. But living up north, come warmer weather, I tend to get busier with outdoor things because it's finally starting to get warm enough where I live that I can go outside and enjoy the sunshine.
You could move to Vegas. I'm just saying. You can
It's
go
always
all
warm
year.
there.
I want to. We want to move south. That's for sure.
All right, so we want to catch up real quick and talk to you. Since it's been a while, how did your set championship experience go?
Oh, wow. I had a crazy set championship experience. So I went all in and tried to schedule as many as I possibly could, which was funny because I was coming back from a trip on the first 2 days that they were able to be scheduled. And so I missed out on the first Saturday. So the Friday and Saturday, I missed out on the ones that happened there. But I did one on the first Sunday, one on the second Saturday, and one on the second Sunday as well. So I did a total of 3 set championships and really had a blast with it. I did not win any stitches. My husband won a stitch in our first set championship. So we do have our slot filled in our promo binder, which was amazing. He did such a good job with it. But it was really interesting to see. So locally for us, it's really a core group of people who are playing Lorcana consistently. And it was really wild to go to all 3 of these set championships and essentially see the same people at each one. There was definitely some differences, some new faces that I hadn't seen before, but it was pretty much most of the same people at each one, which really gave me a fun chance to kind of connect more with people, chat and catch up since I'd been a couple weeks out from League. But I had a really fun time playing with everyone.
So what I hear you saying is you've become one of those TCG sharks going from store to store to snatch up all the stitches. Is that what I'm hearing?
Except for the part about snatching stitches.
I was going to say, like, considering I didn't get any, I would hope that label is not applied to me. But I wanted to increase my odds knowing that I am not particularly a strong player. I don't spend a lot of time practicing. And so I recognize that means I'm not going to be performing at necessarily the same level that a lot of these people who come in are performing at. So I wanted to increase my odds of getting a stitch in order. So that's why I did the 3 there. My husband, who is the competitive one between us, he only ended up doing one of them, and it was the one that he got the stitch for. So he's safe this time around, but he is ready to come out swinging for set 4 championship.
Well, tell us about your results. Like, how did you do? Like, clearly you didn't get a stitch, but I mean, this is your first time playing really in an event like this. So
Yeah.
how'd you do?
I think I did really well. So the only other event I've played in, so not counting the starter deck events that Ravensburger ran at Gen Con, the only other event I have played in was the Lorcana tournament at Miami TCG convention last year. And my goal coming out from that was I wanted to win a single round. And I came out after losing my first 3 rounds there. I came out round 4 with a win to somebody who learned to play the game the night before. So coming into set championships, I was like, let's see if I can do better than that. And I am really pleased to say that I pretty consistently won. I think for all of mine, I won at least 2 rounds of every event that I went to, which I was really happy with. I was playing a deck that's not necessarily considered like on the meta. I was playing Ruby Amethyst, but a little bit more of an aggro-y flavor since that's just my play style. And I decided that I didn't want to be miserable playing set championships. So I wanted a deck that I enjoyed a little bit more. But I came out with at least 2 round wins plus a little bit more. My favorite one was we were in our last game and I needed to win it. Whoever won our game of the match was going to be in top 4, which was guaranteed a stitch. And it was against one of our friends locally, and I ended up losing to him. He had a really good deck, but it was super fun to see him get that be the game that put him into the top 4 to get his 1 stitch that he had. But I was really proud of how I did. I think I've made a huge difference. Like I remember at Miami, like my hands were shaking the whole time. Like I was like sweating bullets. And I didn't have that feeling with set championships. I'm sure part of that is because these are local shops that I've mostly been to, that I regularly play at. These are people that I know. But I felt a lot more confident going into it. And that was a really good feeling.
You are such a gracious person. A lot of people when they lose, they get angry, especially if you're 1 game away from a top 4 and you're just like, yeah, unfortunately I lost, but I was really happy for my friend. So it's people like yourself that make Lorcana such a welcoming place.
Thank you. That's definitely my goal.
I was going to throw stuff at people that were beating me.
I don't believe that for 1 minute.
I was very gracious in person, and but it was definitely not a great feeling to lose. But yeah,
for sure.
You did better than I did, Adara, because I'm pretty sure I did not get 2 wins at every tournament I went to. But I did go to more, and so I had more chances to fail.
It's the chances to like get us that practice though, right?
Yeah. Do you feel like all of that practice is now you're going to be doing some of the challenges, correct?
Yeah. So I'm definitely going with my husband to Chicago.
Nice.
So I will be there. If anybody who's listening wants to see me, I will be there all the days, and I'm looking forward to it and would love to meet up with and chat with anybody who's there. I think we're going to try to do a second one. That's going to kind of depend on, I know they had mentioned that Ravensburger was maybe going to try to do 1 or 2 more before the Continentals. So depending on those and how those relate with like existing travel plans we have for the rest of the year, we're going to try to do 1 more, but we're not confirmed on any of the other ones at this point. Just for sure doing Chicago and for sure not doing Atlanta.
Hey, you know what is a really cheap place to fly to and stay at?
Vegas?
Yeah, Vegas. I'm just saying. We can have the whole team there.
We could.
I will say I'm eyeing up Seattle a little bit.
That's a weird way of saying Las Vegas, Adara. Very weird.
Your mouth isn't working right.
No.
Do you think that these set championships are a good stepping stone for those challenges?
I think they are. I think these set championships are going to see the local people who are more competitive turn out to them, who wouldn't maybe go to a regular league night at an LGS. So because of that, I think in general, you'll see maybe like half the people will be people who are really competitive and really are practicing the game regularly. And then maybe the other half are just, hey, this sounded fun. Let's go try it out. So I think it's a really good step, especially for like people like me who have like never really done tournament type things. I think we saw a lot of this whiplash from the community of people who went into these never doing a tournament before, and this kind of being that first flavor of something that had a taste of being more competitive than maybe a regular weekly league. So I do think this is a really good stepping stone, both for somebody who's not familiar with TCGs, but also I think for those people who are, I think you have a higher chance of running into other competitive players locally to you. And it's a great chance to network and build up a group of people that you can practice with. I know coming out from set championships, we have a group of people now that we have an LGS we're going to meet at a certain time every week. And it's a group of us who are going to Chicago, and we're going to run decks against each other, and we're going to practice there. So I attribute that to those set championships and us coming together in a group there for forming that kind of thing to go forward with. So I do think it's a really good stepping stone. I would also highly encourage anybody who was like maybe on the fence about doing one to do the set 4 one once we know when they're going to happen. Like I think it's worth doing these at least once. You know, find one that's local to you, that's a cheap entry fee. Like it's okay if you don't win the promo from it, but I think it's a really good experience to have, especially if you're ever considering going to a challenge.
All right, good idea. So you mentioned the set 4 stuff, and Chicago will be the first set 4 Ursula's Return challenge because Atlanta can't use those cards. So let's just go into that, and let's get your thoughts on set 4 so far. What are your overall impressions? Now we have all the cards, so let's just talk about our overall impressions of the set.
Yeah, I think my overall impression is, well, first of all, I'm really behind on reveals other than the ones today, since I was in the Discord as Rochelle and Brandon were doing those. So I maybe don't know all of the details of all of the cards, but I do think I've seen a couple of cards that I've looked at, and the first thing I thought of is, wow, this is going to speed up the game. I know I can remember a couple of cards off the top of my head that have like effects that tagged onto them are like gain 3 lore, as like if these other conditions are met, like you do this thing and you gain 3 lore. Like gaining anything more than 1 lore from a card, I think in my opinion is going to make the game go a little bit faster. And we saw a couple more of those cards. So I'm really interested to see if any of those end up seeing play. And if they do, how does that affect like average number of turns in a game, for example? I know that can really matter, especially in tournaments, but I'm interested to see how it ends up affecting. But just fun cards. Overall impression is there's fun cards. We have fun characters, not Mushu yet. Very sad. But I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on these cards again and getting to play them.
I think my big picture thing that I'm excited for with set 4, there's so much, but the thing that I'm really looking forward to is the fact that we can really build, I think they're called the typal decks, where you have the hero deck that they're really like, it feels like you can really build a deck around a keyword. And whether it's hero, they're also Pirates was kind of pushed this last set. Villains is another one that's kind of being pushed this one, especially with that new Pain and Panic. Those ones, I was like, wow, like if this card is exerted, you can't attack any villains. That's pretty neat. But the other one is Brooms. Like Brooms is something people have been asking for since set 1.
Yes.
And now it feels like we finally have all the pieces in place for potentially something there.
Brooms are feeling like they're either like this close. They're like almost there. Like you have to figure out other stuff to put in there to make them really work. We don't have like where you can just run an entire Broom deck with Mickey Sorcerers and Yensids, and maybe we'll get some buckets someday or something like that as items that really do something good, or who knows.
What about that new Bruno? Exert,
right,
name
Magical Family. The Madrigal family is another typal where there's a ton of Madrigals. We got a bunch of Mulan cards, and as you mentioned, still no Mushu, but we did get a bunch of Mulans, and all of the characters, multiple characters and multiple versions of some of them. So we got a lot of stuff in this set to help fill out certain things, and I do think that hero and villain are things that we can actually try building around now, where before there was just something lacking. So I think that's really cool.
We
Can I
did get
tell
a
you?
couple more musketeers as well, which I thought
Yes,
was
more.
very interesting.
The card that shook me was the one with Ursula that had the two versions of Ursula on it. Like,
Right?
I didn't think we'd see two different Ursula glimmers in the same frame. Like, I didn't know they existed in the same universe, even though I guess I should have thought that, but I thought they existed in one state, like either Ursula was Dreamborn or Storyborn or Floodborn, but the fact that there was two of them there, that just
Which now means that you know that at any given time, if you're building your army of brooms, you know, obviously brooms are a good one to point to, say, well, yeah, of course there can be more of them. There was tons of brooms, but glimmers are created from the magical ink. So every time you create one, you can just keep creating it as long as you have ink, right? So that's why there's the two Ursulas, and that's what they talked about. That's what Rochelle talked about on the stream today, was that the Ursula that was in the book, that Martin opened, was the one who escaped, and she is the one who apparently had also been a problem in Lorcana in the past, which was why she was trapped in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Martin.
So there's a lot of lore going on. There's a lot of story in these cards that's going on. And of course, Ursula does what Ursula does best and betrays Ursula, which I think is awesome.
Yes. One of the first things I'm going to do once we get our set is I want to lay out those cards. Like, we have so much good flavor text that is leading the story of Lorcana. And I want to get all those cards and lay them out so I can actually like read the flavor text in the order that I think they're supposed to be read, or like to kind of get that cohesive story. Because like we've had the bits and pieces, like even the cards that we revealed last week go with a card that we saw today, like, and the flavor text all strings together. It's meant to create that cohesive story. And I want to see that all together.
It's like a really good adventure movie where the all of the variety of different characters are all on these little adventures that you have to keep hopping between the scenes while they're doing things. So like Ariel and Flounder over doing this, and Olaf and Anna are off searching for Kristoff because they found his hat, and you know the brooms are cleaning up the illuminary because it was attacked by someone and then left all of those barnacles and whatever around, so they have to clean up after stuff, and just all these different things are happening all at the same time, and it's all happening on these cards, and you're like, how do you fit this puzzle together?
And Hades is plotting his next move,
right? So that's another thing. Do we think that Hades is the next big bad for the next series of stories? Because this set finishes Ursula's story, where she comes and tries to take things over. That's what the whole Deep Trouble Illuminator's quest is about, is you beating Ursula to finish the first story. And now Hades is waiting in the wings to be the next person to cause problems.
Well, shout out to Blake, who runs the channel Warlock Levram. If you haven't watched this video, go watch it. But he likes to cover the lore of Lorcana. I watched his latest video where he talked about Hades being the next big bad, and he's got me convinced. Yeah, I'm buying it. I'm buying it.
There was a ton of flavor text on that one vanilla Hades, right? So yeah, I think so.
Have we already forgotten about Magica Dispel though?
Oh, see, they're setting a whole bunch of stuff up. I mean, that's what you have to do with these stories, is they have to feed things, and this is the kind of thing that they do in television. In shows that are serialized, they seed stuff that sometimes they don't even have an idea for. They don't even have a story for. They just seed things in there so that in season 2 or 3 or season 10, if it goes that long, they can go look in the past and see some of these seeds they planted that maybe they'll be able to pick up and walk with as an actual story for a full season, because they seeded them through. And one of the things that did it, either if you want to think the best or the worst, was Lost. Lost had so many things that they put in that show that they just never got to, because they just loved putting mysteries in instead of answering them. Don't do that, Lorcana. All right. Answer.
let's get back on track here.
Okay. What are we going to do next?
We wanted to do something a little different today. I mean, one of the reasons why we wanted to do a video was so that we could do this next thing that we're going to do. But if you're listening on podcast, don't worry, you can still like follow along. Just imagine we are going to actually do a tier list ranking of the legendaries from Lorcana set 4 Ursula's Return. So I'm going to bring up my screen here, and there we go. All right. So we are just going to start this in order. All right. So we're going to start with Cinderella. And I'm just going to say this, and you guys can debate me whether you think this is the right place or not. S tier is obviously Flounder because it's the best.
The Flounder tier, correct.
I think Cinderella belongs in this tier, and I know the arguments against Cinderella that she dies to Ursula or Medusa.
Well,
but this card is just too good. What do you guys think?
Well, she's the one that's the Singer 9, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Singer 9, and when she sings a song, your other princess characters get 1 lore for this turn.
Okay. The only reason I would not place her in Flounder tier and just 1 tier lower is that you have to wait a turn to use her. She doesn't have an on-play ability. So she is an excellent character to sing any song except for, I think, currently 2 songs in the entire game. She can sing any of them on her own.
Just put her in Atlantica.
And then she can sing any song, correct. And giving other characters that extra lore, of course, is going to be a really good ability. It's other princesses, right? That's what she said. Mm-hmm. So I think so, but I think just the fact that that she is a little slow, since you do have to take a turn, and she, like where Ariel gets you a song and then the next turn can sing it. I think those kinds of things make Ariel a Flounder tier, where this Cinderella just is 1 tier below.
Ariel, a rare in set 1.
Yes.
It's Flounder tier. Okay. All right. Adara, what do you think?
I do have to agree with James on this. She's really close to S. Honestly, like if she was a Floodborn, so if she could shift onto something to have that immediate playability, or if she had an on-play ability, like absolutely no questions asked, like the top of that Flounder tier. But without that, like she does have to survive. And there's a couple of things that, like, and not even just Medusa. Like, you're not only going to be running against Ruby decks. Like, there's going to be other things that can take her out. There are other things that can take her out. And it would feel so bad to play her, and on your opponent's turn they take her out. Like, I would be so frustrated with that. So I'd put her on like the line between A and Flounder. So
all right, I can buy that. Okay, so we're pretty happy having here at A, correct then?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so our next one is, I'm just trying to pull up the actual image so I can read what he does.
I can read it. I have the images already saved, actually, Jared.
So this is the Mickey Mouse bodyguard who also has support. I forget what his ability is. But I think so. A tier in my world, A tier is that these cards will probably see play. They'll probably find home in some meta relevant deck. And we were talking about, that's right. When you play him on a turn and when you play him and you have a bodyguard in play, you can draw a card for every bodyguard that you have in play. So he does have that enter the field effect, and he does have bodyguard and support. Gosh, I'm kind of talking myself into putting him in S tier, but I'm going to put him in A tier and see what you guys think.
I'll go real fast here. So it is specifically if you played him using shift. So you have to have played him using shift in order to get the draw for each bodyguard you have in play. That being said, this is an amazing card. Like, being able to shift him in, which is probably what you're going to want to do to get that ability. You can immediately quest with him, so you can get his lore. He has support, so you can use that to give something else the attack. He has the bodyguard, so he'll be protecting. Like, the only thing that gives me pause with this card is that it is a 7 cost. And that starts putting it into the slightly more expensive cards that can be harder to play out if you're not ramping. So I definitely think this will see play. I could be persuaded to put this into S. I think it really depends on what ink pairing this goes with. And I'm just not sure we have a really good idea of Amber pairing with something that allows ramp, say like Sapphire. We haven't really seen stuff like that yet.
So,
Yeah.
quick question that came to my mind. Can you use just in time with a shiftable card?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not saying that you would. I'm just saying that you could.
So, no. It's Lantern works to discount shift cost, but just in time does not. Like you could use it, but so like for example, like it wouldn't work here because this is 7 costs, and just in time you have to do 5 costs or less if I remember right. But just in time looks at the straight up cost of the character. There's a wording difference. So like the example that was always given is Aurora Dreaming Guardian is a 5 cost character that can shift. So you can use her, you can play her using just in time, but you couldn't shift her using just in time. You would just have to play her onto the field because of how just in time is worded.
Interesting. I thought you could, as long as it cost 5 to play the character, you could, but it looks at the actual number on the card.
It looks at the cost of the card. So the top left
when you
number,
shift, the cost is 5, right?
It's a discount. There's a wording, I can't remember the word difference, but there's a word difference between Lantern and just in time that makes just in time only look at the top left cost, whereas Lantern looks at just what you're paying to play the character.
Gotcha. So I agree with A tier, and one of the things that the reasons that I would look at cards is whether they go up a level or not is what is required for them to work to their best. And this one requires another Mickey out and other bodyguards out. And that's a lot of things to have in play, to put into place, to set up in order to use that ability, which it is a very good ability because that could be a lot of draw because there are a lot of bodyguards in Amber. But I think it's just too much to pay. So while it is a very good card, and I think that it will see play if people who build bodyguard decks will be able to make use of this for sure. I just think it's not quite Flounder level.
Does he count like as a bodyguard? So he'd draw a card on himself when you play him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So
Yeah,
always
each
replaces
character with
himself.
Always replaces himself when you shift.
All right. So A tier. Okay. A tier is going to get kind of crowded.
Yep.
Okay. So this next card is Ursula. I'm just going to set her here real quick as I read her abilities. So she's a shift 5. She has 2 abilities. Now I'm the ruler. Whenever this character quest, exert chosen character. That's pretty good. And you'll listen to me. Other characters can't exert to sing songs, including your own. She also has 3 lore. So, guys, I don't know. Like, okay, maybe I'm just wanting to put every character in S, but given, like, if she were in this current meta that we're in right now, she would definitely be here in S tier, I would think. But I don't know what set 4 meta is going to look like. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think she's going to be really good because being shiftable means you can take advantage of her abilities immediately. So you can immediately exert something and take advantage of that. And stopping your opponents from singing songs. I mean, yes, you can't sing them either, but in this case, you're probably going to want to shut down your opponent and build your deck around not having those songs. And there are plenty of Ursulas that you can use, especially the one from Inklands. I know it's uninkable, so a lot of people don't like it, but it does a similar effect where you can exert it to to, or when she quests, you exert a character, something like that. So you do have a shift target. And I think that this is something that you can build your deck to focus on. So I think she may be possibly one of the top legendaries in this set.
I agree. I think S tier is solid for her. James, I really liked your explanation for Mickey of like looking at how many cards do you need to like make this card good. And like she works by herself. You could shift her out to use her immediately. You don't have to. It's really nice too. She's inkable, so if you get her early game, you're not just stuck with her in your hand. Like you can keep her there. You could use her as ink if you really need it. I think she's a solid S tier.
Yeah. I mean, just imagine if you shifted her on turn 5, that prevents your opponent from playing Be Prepared. Like, they cannot sing it early with those stupid Steel Song decks. I know Be Prepared's not in Steel Song, but, like, I don't know. Ursula's going to be really good. So we have our first S tier here. The next one is Yensid, and he's easily going in A tier because there are a lot of people who are excited to play Broom decks, and Yensid is one of the engines that will make Broom decks work. So he's 2 cost. He comes up pretty quickly, and we have a 1 cost Broom to make his next effects beneficial. His effects are Timely Intervention. When you play this character, if you have a character named Magic Broom in play, you may draw a card. So he replaces himself. And the next one is Arcane Study. While you have 2 or more Broom characters in play, this character gets +2 lore. So it's like the Pirate Piglet from Into the Inklands. If you have 2 or more Brooms, he gets +2 lore. And yeah, he's weak. He's 1 strength, 3 willpower, but I definitely think this guy is going to see some play.
Yeah, looking at this again, I'm actually a little surprised that he's legendary, actually. He is a pretty small body. But he's definitely legendary because of the 2 pretty strong effects, not only replacing himself, but also gaining that lore from the Brooms. Yeah, I think he's going to see play. There's, like you said, Jared, there's so many people who have been waiting to play a Broom deck, even if it's not particularly viable. Like, people have been trying with set 3 already. Like, this is only going to make those better. And also, like, you don't have to play Yensid turn 2. You could wait a little bit longer, get those Brooms out there, and have him come out a little bit later, or have multiple of him come out. I think he's going to see play. I think he's definitely not quite up there to the S tier because of needing those Brooms in order to get his effects, but I think A is a good spot for him.
I mean, I want him to work. It's just, what's his cost to play again? Is it 2?
2.
So you can get him out pretty early and try and get some value out of him. And he doesn't have to quest until you have things set up, and you can get that 3 once you have things set up. So hopefully he can survive. But being out that early and then I don't know. I mean, I like the draw, so I think that's a good thing. So I don't know. He's one of the ones that he's right now like A-, and like he's hovering, and he's like about ready to drop down to B tier. But if someone can make the Broom deck work, I think he's a solid A.
Well, I think he's pretty similar to the Maleficent of set 3 Into the Inklands, where she has really strong abilities, but just hasn't seen any play. But I think there are enough people who want a Broom deck to work. And I mean, they have if there was no 1-drop Broom, I would definitely put him in B tier, but there is a 1-drop Broom. And then on turn 2, you play Yensid. Turn 3, you can play another Broom, and he's online and ready to go. And even if he can only quest once, at least you're getting that 3 lore plus the card draw. I mean, it's kind of like Maleficent that replaces herself, but he can't sing a song. I don't know. I definitely think he's A tier though.
Yeah, I just think he's really close. He's really close to dropping down.
Yeah. All right, this one I am not sure where to put Diablo here. Like, I feel like he belongs in a Steel Song deck. I feel like people are going to use that. But I could also see a world where Diablo is in doesn't see much play tier. Okay, just as a refresher, Diablo is a 3 cost, so pretty cheap, but you can shift Diablo by discarding an action card. Diablo also has evasive, so you could get Diablo out as soon as turn 1 if you have the baby Diablo out. And Diablo's ability is circle far and wide. During each opponent's turn, whenever they draw a card, while this character is exerted, you may draw a card. So it's actually a pretty good ability. It's just a very small body. I think at the beginning of set 4, he's going to see play, but middle to late, he might drop to B tier. I'm not sure. What do you guys think?
I think he's B tier at best right now until someone figures out how to make him work. Just because he's so fragile and has to be exerted to work. So I don't think that he's gonna be very usable until someone figures out how to make it work in a deck, and then obviously he'll get better. Just like everyone when we first saw Lucky Dime, we're like, nah, too expensive, no one's going to use it. And then a few weeks later, like everyone's like, oh wait, Lucky Dime's the best card. So right now, I just don't see how he can be used. So I mean, I think even there's a chance that at some point he maybe just has to go down to Gantu level, unfortunately. But right now,
turn 1
B until we know. B, yeah.
Turn 1, baby Diablo. Shift on turn 1. Turn 2, he can play Bucky. He can play Sudden Chill. Diablo's exerted. He'll be able to draw a card. Like, I don't think he's gone to level.
No, but if no one ever makes him work, he's moving down. But for now, we'll leave him there until he either does work or doesn't.
Well, what do you think, Adara?
It only works on your opponent's turn, though, so it doesn't work on your turn.
He's getting worse.
Yeah, so it's during each opponent's turn whenever they draw a card while this character is exerted. So
you exert. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was going to say, like, like one of the best lines I could imagine is you end up exerting him. You immediately get a card because your opponent has to draw for turn. If you can get him exerted, you're essentially guaranteed a card from the starting draw. However, I do think he's really easy to take out, even with the evasive. You have Steel, which just has so much stinking removal that can hit him early game. Like you could literally do Fire the Cannons. Maybe we'll see Fire the Cannons come back. I think he's B tier. I do think he's B tier. I don't think he's. Okay. I'm not saying he should be down in C, because I think people are going to try to make this work. I don't think he'll see play long term because a lot of decks run lower cost evasives, because even right now, having low cost evasives early game can be amazing if your opponent doesn't have the answer to them. So I think decks already kind of run the removal that would be needed to get rid of him, but like he does get you a card. And he is evasive. So I leave him in B for right now. Again, this might be something that later on into the set, he might move down a little bit depending on how play actually works for him. But I could kind of see how he would be used, but I definitely think he's B.
Okay. But also, you almost have to draw 3 cards to make him worthwhile, because you have to shift him. So that's, losing 1 card, 1 body there. You have to discard a card to shift him. And so then if you want to get value off of him, you have to get that 3rd card. So he's kind of moving down to C tier for me.
Yeah. So one thing I will say, though, that this card could be amazing in multiplayer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shift him and then sing Friends on the Other Side.
There you go. All right. Well, we'll leave him in B tier here. Hades. Unfortunately, I think Hades is going to join Diablo here in B tier. Hades is a 4-cost, inkable, 3/3, 1 lore. His ability says, get down to business, banish chosen character of yours, play another character from your hand with the same name. So, yeah, if you're playing Baby Tamatoa in Emerald, you could use Hades on turn 5, because that's when he'll be dry. You could use Hades on turn 5 and get Big Tamatoa. But I don't know. It's a lot of setup. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I definitely think he's at like he's definitely not higher than B. The thing that really gives me pause is that his ability is an exert one. So he has to exert himself, and it's not from questing, it's not from singing. Like, it's specifically you're going to wait for him to dry, and then you're going to exert him, with the only benefit being this kind of like weird shifting kind of thing, which can be really nice. Honestly, this is kind of reminding me of Trumpeter Mickey from last set, which like ended up seeing no play. It's not particularly useful. This is a bigger body, but he's definitely one of the lower legendaries for me.
That being said, I think that his initial level will rise over the course of the game's history as we get more low cost of every character and more high cost of every character in a multitude of colors. And then this card may end up seeing play like in a year, or in just a couple sets when we have, like, a correct color, low cost Maleficent, so you can get out, the dragon on turn 5, like you said. Things like that, where you can get out characters that, the really good high cost characters that you can get out quickly. But for now, yeah, it's just going to be too slow, and not enough use and not enough characters for us to really work with, especially since you're limited to Emerald and then whatever color it's played with.
Yeah. Okay. This next character is Mulan. And guys, I am high on Mulan. I think she's going right here next to Ursula. Okay, conditionally, if you're able to shift her. So she shifts on 5, which isn't a huge savings because she's 6 cost, but she has 2 abilities. The first one is Straight Shooter. When you play this character, if you used shift to play her, she gets +3 strength this turn. So she'd go up to 5 strength if you shift her. Her second ability, though, this is where she shines. Triple shot. During your turn, whenever this character deals damage to another character in a challenge, deal the same amount of damage to up to 2 other chosen characters. So if you shift her, she can do up to 5 damage onto 3 other characters, plus she quests for 2. So and we have a lot of new shift targets for this Mulan. She got a lot of support in this new set. I think that this card is going to see a lot of play.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing you have to remember is that damage that she can deal, that 5 damage, she's dealing that no matter how much willpower the character has that she is challenging. So you can run her into the opponent's lowest value character, and she still deals the 5 damage, which that 5 damage is also dealt to the other higher value characters. So she can stay on the board longer while still taking out those higher value targets. So I think that she's going to be very good. And getting her out on shift, like you mentioned, we have 2 new Ruby Mulans in this set. A one cost and I think a 3 cost. So I think she's definitely going to get played. And whether or not she drops any lower, I think is just as we play as we know, we play games and people test, and we will find out. But right now, I do agree that she's going to be one of the top cards, one of the top legendaries in this set.
I'd agree. Resist is a little annoying with her. We don't have a whole lot of resist quite yet. We did get a couple more this set. But otherwise, she's a pretty wide range of removal, an area of effect type damage almost. And I love it. I'm excited that I think we're getting a copy of this in the Illumineers, the Illumineers quest product, which I think is going to make it interesting to see what her cost ends up doing on the secondary market. because I do agree. I think at least to start out here, she's definitely going to be that S tier.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, now sadly, I think in Ruby, our next card is Sisu, and Sisu has a wonderful ability. I think this card is beautiful. I'm dropping it right here in the B tier though, because Sisu's ability. Okay, so Sisu is 8 cost, but she can shift for 6. Her ability is Let Me Handle This. When you play this character, banish all opposing characters with 2 strength or less. And she also quests for 3 lore. I mean, I could see a world where she goes up here into A tier, especially if your opponent is playing these cards like Cinderella or Hiram Flaversham, or if they have an aggro deck. But if they have an aggro deck, you're probably not making it to Sisu anyway. But I think this is another one that James was talking about that's right on this line, but I have to say she's probably sitting below this line for me.
Go ahead, Adara.
Oh yes, it is my turn. I totally agree. She's a beautiful card. It's a wonderful ability. I think you've said everything I would say, Jared. It's as of right now, I think her lowest shift target is a 2 cost. I think we got that today, and I feel like there's some nice combos, but then you're adding in additional cards that need to be played before her, and that just increases the amount of ink you need. Maybe this has a place in a Ruby Sapphire deck with the extra ramp, so you could play more in a given turn. Outside of that, I'm not really sure she's going to see a whole lot.
I think this is another one that's probably going to be very good in multiplayer, and in a deck like the Ruby Amber Mufasa style deck that can possibly even get her out on a Mufasa roulette and see what happens. But also that way you can play with the song that reduces all opponents' strength, and that way there are more targets within her reach of the 2 strength or less. So I think that, again, because you have to combo things and because she is high cost, I think that that's probably the appropriate tier for her for now.
See, I forgot about that song. I was specifically thinking of Kita. I was like, if there's a world where you could play Kita and Sisu on the same turn, that would be very powerful. I mean, that's basically a be prepared, but that requires a lot of ink and a lot of setup.
Yeah,
and probably not possible. So.
Yeah, the Lost in the Woods. I think it's Lost in the Woods. That song you could sing with if you had another. I think it's 4. So if you had a 4 cost character out and then play this, you'd hit a lot more targets. But that's why I think that it's probably better in multiplayer because you're gonna have more targets to hit. Where in a normal game, you might hit most characters out, but most. I mean, this is mainly designed, to hit like an aggro someone who's going wide, and someone who's going wide when this can get played, typically they're pretty much already won, or you're already taking them all out.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the Sapphire legendaries. Our first one here is the Queen. And my Sapphire heart is going to put her... I mean, she's definitely going to see play. She's not S tier by any means. But if you're running an item slinger deck, she's a solid A tier. Her ability is Consult the Grimoire. You exert her, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal an item card and put it into your hand. If that item card costs 3 or less, you may play that item for free and it enters play exerted. Could you imagine an exerted popsicle? But put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So Item Slinger deck got a lot of support this set with Ursula's return. And I think the Queen here and Scuttle are going to be 2 big parts of making that deck work.
For sure. This one, I think, actually is pushing Flounder tier. Just because it's search where it lets you take out cards that you may have had to use, like Develop Your Brain or whatever else you're using to get to. I think it's one of the Grammatalas, maybe, that is the search card. It's allowing you to do specifically what you want, which is on turn 3, play the quill. And if you haven't found it yet, you can play this instead and search 4 deep to find that quill. And sure, you don't get to use it this turn because it enters play exerted, but it gets it out where normally you'd be waiting a few more turns to get it out, and your ramping would be that much slower. So I think it's definitely pushing the flounder tier because I think it's going to be very useful.
You do have to exert her in order to use her ability. I don't think she's S. I really don't think she's S. I think she's good. I'm not super familiar with the item deck, so I'm going to lean a little bit more heavily on you guys for that. On like how good she could be along with the items. But I definitely don't think she's S. I think she'll see play, but I don't think she's S.
All right. I can live with that. Now, this next one here is my boy, not Flounder, but King Triton. He's a 9 cost, shifts for 6, 7 strength, 9 willpower. This is a big boy. 3 lore, and his ability is Imposing Presence. Opposing characters get -1 strength for each location you have in play. And gosh, I hate to do this to my Sapphire card, but I just don't know. Like, okay, location decks. When you think of location decks, you think of Steel, think of Ruby. I guess Sapphire has McDuck Manor. Amethyst has the Queen's Palace. Wow, words. But man, I don't think there's really a location-based deck for Sapphire. And I think, at least for the current meta, I think Triton might be going Gantu level here.
Yeah, this is a hard one to say. It's right now you hit the nail on the head there, Jared, of right now probably the best location deck we've seen is Ruby Steel. Just with the locations that we had for set 3 and the cards that we had, that just made sense. I think he's a cool card. I love the art. I'm interested to see what deck people come up with that would run him. I am completely blanking on what cost Tritons we have across the different colors to decide like how good his shift is, but I think he's going to be in C tier until we see something like a deck pull him out and maybe move him up to B.
Or should we put him under the sea?
Oh.
Wow. Yeah, he's where he belongs. I think this is one of the currently one of the worst legendaries in this set for sure.
All right, so that brings us to Donald Duck in Steel, and I have to put Donald as a solid A here. He's 4 cost, 3 strength, 4 willpower. His ability is Boarding Party. During your turn, whenever this character banishes a character in a challenge, your other characters get +1 lore this turn. So this is kind of like Mulan from set 1. I guess Mulan hasn't seen a lot of play, but I just feel like this Donald is a pirate. You could throw him into the Jolly Roger where he gets rush. And by turn 4, especially if you have a more aggro style deck, you could have 2 or 3 characters out already. And this would really bump those numbers up. So I think Donald's going to see some play.
Yeah, I think he's really good too. Like you mentioned, the pirate deck with the Jolly Roger, he's going to get instant value for you with just the one location out. And of course, obviously, you need other characters out to get that bonus with the extra lore. But as you mentioned, it's later. It's a few turns in, you're going to have something out. Maybe a John Silver that's already getting some extra lore. So he just gets that extra lore. We'll see if you can build around it and build that really a really good pirate deck, or at least just using him for that value with the rush to make sure you get the value on the turn he's played. So I think he's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, he slots in really well to existing pirate decks, and I think only gets better with the additional pirate cards that we've seen from this set. So I think A is a good spot for him.
Yeah. And he might be one of these other ones that's straddling the line between A and B, but I think right now he belongs in this A tier. Okay, so our last one, which was revealed today, which was not a Shan Yu or Prince Eric. Instead, it was Piglet. And Piglet, man, he is living life in Lorcana. He's a pirate captain, and now here he's a sturdy swordsman. He's a 5 cost, uninkable, 3 strength, 5 willpower, has resist +1, which is nice. He has 3 lore, and his ability is not so small anymore. While you have no cards in your hand, this character can challenge ready characters. And this is another one in the same vein as Tiana, Ballroom Sensation, or no, the Tiana one. That's 4 cost and uninkable. That doesn't want you to have any cards in your hand. That's just not a style of play that I like. I could see some people possibly trying to make a Piglet deck, which is why it's going in B, which is most likely not going to be played. But yeah, I mean, it dies to Medusa, which is one thing a lot of people say. But I mean, that's just the flavor of the month. What do you guys think about Piglet?
I saw a lot of people very excited about the Piglet today, not just because of the character, but because of it. I personally don't see a whole lot of that. Like I heard somebody mention like, oh, this could be running a discard deck. Well, discard decks are normally you draw off of your opponent discarding, which increases your hand size. Sure, in like a normal game, you're going to be down to a low to nothing hand size by this point, most likely. But I think we've learned that card advantage in Lorcana and having cards in your hand, if you can, is a huge advantage in the game. And having those choices and not just top decking for most decks is going to be the difference between if you win or lose. So I think B is a good spot for him. He's definitely not a C tier. I think he's going to see a little bit of play and people trying to make him work. I just don't particularly see the edge that would bring him up to an A right now.
I actually think that he is C tier. I think he's gone to level. In every way that matters, Robin Hood beats this card. Robin Hood is inkable. He has the 6 willpower, which I know this has resist, but he does have the 6. So basically the same stats. Piglet has 1 more lore, but Robin Hood earns you lore whenever you banish something, so he can always make up that difference. And with the ability with no cards in hand, like you mentioned, you don't want to have no cards in hand. Like 99% of the time playing this game, that's not what you want. So this is like a last gasp scenario kind of a thing, like that, like, you know, or an actual game plan that you're trying for because you know you're going to run out of cards. And I just don't think that's the optimal way to play. So I think this has gone to level. I think that if you ever making a choice, if you're looking at, okay, which legendary 5 cost legendary am I going to play in this deck, you're always going to pick Robin Hood over this card.
The only scenario I see this card working in is if it's like in that Amethyst Steel Rush deck that used Tiana and her ability. But with that style of deck, a 5 cost card that's uninkable,
Yeah,
that's a heavy price to pay. So
exactly. It's the uninkable that really is that last straw that puts him down that low. If he was inkable, you might try it because then at the very least he's ink if you can't get it to work. If you've managed to do a bunch of draw and you do have stuff, he's ink, which is great. So it's a tech card kind of a thing, you know, but otherwise, no, useless.
Yeah, a lot of the aggro-y type decks, like the decks that want to go fast right now, are pretty tight on uninkables already. So it has to be a really good uninkable for like me to want to switch it out in one of my decks. And I think you make a very fair point, James, of like given the choice between Piglet and Robin Hood, like if I really needed something for a 5-drop slot, I'm probably picking the Robin Hood for a deck that wants to go fast.
All right, you guys. So if you are watching this on YouTube and you see our tier list here, what do you think? What did we get right? What did we get wrong? I actually feel pretty good about this list. I mean, yeah, there were some between A and B that we could see going back and forth, but I don't know. I feel like this is a pretty good list. So drop a comment down below and let us know what you think.
It's a nice curve, and that makes the math person in me happy.
I think it's gonna be like, that graph should have been like a reverse curve where there's like nothing near the top and everything's at the bottom because everyone's just like legendaries, boo.
I think we have a nice, like, I know there's been a lot of talk of like Floodborne didn't particularly have a lot of good legendaries in it that see play. Inklands was a little bit better. We had a little bit more. I think we had like 3 or 4 legendaries that people were chasing after. And I think we are going to have a nice solid set. I think about half of them are going to be at least desirable, at least early on. And I think that makes me really happy to see that there's a little bit of diversity there.
All right, so the last thing we're going to do is there was a massive reveal of the remaining 46 cards this afternoon on the official Discord. Rochelle revealed everything. It took less than an hour, which was crazy. They were just dropping them so fast because they did the thing where you have to guess because they said, okay, this is like between J and K or J and L. So who do you think it is? And everyone was practicing and trying to figure things out and like was guessing them so fast. But we're going to go over our top like 2-ish cards that from today's reveal and just go over those real quick. So who wants to kick it off?
I'll kick it off. Sure.
Okay. Which one are you going to do first so I can find that card?
Let's do the okay, disclaimer. I was at work when all this went on. So I haven't had a lot of time to look these over, but it was the Phytosphere?
Fortisphere?
Yeah, that's the one.
This one, the Fortisphere.
All right, so I like this one. It's a 1 cost. It's inkable. It's an item for still. The ability is resourceful. When you play this item, you may draw a card. So it's like Popsicle, replaces itself. And then it has the second ability, Extract of Still. Pay 1 ink, banish this item. Chosen character of yours gains bodyguard until the start of your next turn. So, I mean, number one, this synergizes well with that Mickey Mouse bodyguard. So you could, potentially draw yourself another card when that Mickey comes on play. Or if you just have like a really important turn coming up and you need to protect your characters and you have a big beefy character like Goofy, Night for a Day, you could give Goofy this card, give him bodyguard, and your opponent is basically helpless at attacking into your other characters unless, they have a spell, be prepared or whatever. But yeah, I think that this is a pretty cool card.
It's definitely better than the Ruby version of the Sphere card, I think. I can't remember what that one. If I have Vitalisphere or something like that, I don't think that one's as good as this one. So yeah,
it makes me wonder if we're going to see other spheres.
I think we will. I think we'll see one in every ink. I think this is your clue that we're going to see one in every ink. If we saw one in 2 inks, so we'll get 2 next set maybe, and then 2 in the set after that.
I've given up trying to figure out patterns with Ravensburger, so we'll get them when we get them.
All right, so which one? Go ahead and share your other one, Jared. We'll do them in a row here.
Okay, which one did I do? Hidden Cove. Hidden Cove. It's a location. I believe it's on Emerald. Okay, so it's 1 cost. It cost 1 to move there. Has 6 strength. So this is going to survive a turn or 2. And it has the ability Revitalizing Waters. Characters get +1 strength and +1 willpower while here. And this is something that Emerald has struggled with, is low-cost characters that have very little strength. So this location will give them a little more oomph when your opponents try to attack into them, and it only costs 1 to move in there. Will they see a ton of play? I don't know. Probably not, but it's kind of cool that we have a location that, and it doesn't even have any lore on it, so it's not like the opponent has much incentive to attack into it. unless they are trying to clear your board. But I could see this one seeing some play.
I loved when I first saw this, I zoomed in and I was like, wait a minute, that's the Inkcaster that we revealed. And so I love how this card goes with the cards that we got to reveal, the Ariel holding the Inkcaster and then the actual Inkcaster itself, and even the flavor text of Ariel speaking to Flounder. It just goes with that story. This card was a huge win for just the story of Lorcana for me, and it made me happy inside.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't get a lot of chance to look at this, but you are absolutely right. That flavor text and just the art definitely connects with the Inkcaster. That's awesome.
All right. And Adara, why don't you go ahead and do yours?
Yeah, I can do Triton first.
Okay.
So the Triton Young Prince, I'm not going to lie, I mostly chose this because of the art. I loved seeing him in his younger form with the bright colored beard. Like, that's just not the image of Triton I had in my mind. So I agreed with Rochelle when she dropped this and said this is art that she really enjoys. I also love this. But I also like that it when your location is banished, you get to put that card into your inkwell. That's pretty handy. I don't know if this will see play, but I liked the idea of that there.
Okay, I just gotta say this though. For anybody that watched SpongeBob, he's definitely giving me vibes of King Neptune. I mean, if he were green, it'd almost be a carbon copy.
Can you tell I have not watched SpongeBob, but that is hilarious.
That's great. Oh my goodness. All right.
All right.
That's a shift target for the legendary Triton. That's C tier.
It's a 4-cost shift target, which isn't particularly good. But he is a shift target. Bonus points if you shift the big Triton onto this and make him grow older. That's lore points right there.
Oh, there we go.
But my other card that I chose from today was Flynn Rider Frenemy. He is a super rare and totally worth it. This is one of those cards that I mentioned at the beginning of it. It seems like a card that could make the game go faster. So it's at the start of your turn. If you have a character in play with more strength than each opposing character, you gain 3 lore. So it's an interesting, I wouldn't have thought of that as the trigger for something of having a character in play that had more strength. But I think it could be a fun thing, and I want to see how people use this because gaining 3 lore is a pretty big deal.
Mm-hmm. This is one of those characters that you just leave upright and hope that there's no direct removal to get rid of it for a few turns. So like in a Ruby Amethyst deck, when you play out your goat or your fox, that's a 4 strength. That's probably going to be higher than most other characters on turn 3 or 4. This is going to get you some lore, hopefully. So yeah, and in Ruby, most Ruby characters do have higher strength than willpower, and there's ways to get them even higher than that. So there you go. It's pretty cool. But yeah, he's got to last a bit with that 2/2/2/2. He's got to be a big old target.
Yep.
Yeah, not only does he have to survive removal, but he also has to survive your opponent placing somebody with a bigger character on board. But like you said, Ruby has a lot of the big beefy characters, so I could see this card having payoff for sure.
Yep. And being able to move. And then you would take advantage of something like Snuggly Duckling, moving all those high value characters to do some attacking and earning even more lore for doing what you want to do anyway and challenging into your opponent.
And I'm just thinking of Ruby Sapphire because my mind loves Sapphire. I mean,
yes.
You ramp away. You're at 5, 6, 7 ink on turn 4. You can drop some big boys on the table, and this card can absolutely pay off.
Exactly. We'll see. Looks good, though. I like it. All right, so I picked, let me find the ones that I picked here. Okay, the first one is Avalanche in Steel. It's uninkable, which is really the main downside here. It costs 4. It's an action, and so the ability is deal 1 damage to each opposing character. You may banish chosen location. So this is a dual effect that I think is going to help create some pretty good combos. It's going to allow you to do something in addition to like Rise of the Titans just lets you banish an item or location, so you just get that banish done. But this one is also going to throw damage out there, and there are things now where damage matters. There's a lot of cards that say do this to chosen damaged character, or I think there's that new Prince Philip. Right? That one's going to be a good one. So there's going to be a lot of things where you can probably take advantage of it by playing this action. Of course, being an action and not a song, you're going to have to pay for it. It's uninkable. So will it get used? Maybe. I think it's a good option. But we'll see if it actually does end up getting used. I just thought it was pretty cool that it's a dual ability that really helps trigger other things.
Yeah.
And then the other 2 that I wanted to go over are basically
James.
I know. There's 2 more because they're basically the same, just in a slightly different way. And so it's that shift target you mentioned for Diablo. And I just wanted to mention these because we're getting a lot of game knowledge in this set. And we already had it with things like Nothing to Hide and Ursula Deceiver. But this one is when you play this character, you may look at each opponent's hand, and it's a character coming out instead of the action Nothing to Hide, because it only costs 1. It's got 1 strength and 2 willpower. So being able to look at your opponent's hand and get a character out is pretty good. And then, as you mentioned, you can then shift Diablo on the next turn and get some value out of that, knowing what your opponent has, so that can help you make your decision whether you do want to shift that Diablo or not. So I think that's pretty cool. And then the other getting information card is the Fates. It's also 1 cost, although this one is 2 strength, 1 willpower, so it's flipped. But it's all will be seen when you play this character. Look at the top card of each opponent's deck. So again, it's future knowledge. You're knowing what your opponent's going to be drawing, and I think that this possibly is something that will also be helpful, especially in the trickster color, the mess with you color in Emerald. I don't know again if these are even going to get played, but I think just again knowledge is going to be very important in this game, and knowing what is in their hand, knowing what's coming up next, may end up being very important going forward. So maybe they'll get played. I just like the fact that we're getting some pretty cool stuff.
I had not caught the look at the top of the deck. Like, that is crazy. Like, that's knowledge that your opponent might not even, well, most likely does not even know.
And it doesn't say reveal, which means you're the one who gets to look. You don't have to turn it over and reveal it.
Yeah, so you get to know something that your opponent doesn't know. And it helps you with planning, which is very interesting.
So at 1 cost, it gets you a character on board as well. So maybe even later in the game, when you're trying to keep your opponent from top decking something awesome,
before you take out their Mufasa, you can be like, "Oh, let's play this. That's a Maleficent dragon. I'm gonna leave Mufasa."
No, I'm not gonna kill that Mufasa. I'm not gonna banish that Mufasa. Never mind. I'll just quest.
That's such a great idea.
I just thought that knowledge is very powerful in this game, and I think those are pretty cool cards.
All right. Well, that was fun.
That was
our first recorded video session. I did not prepare any Disney Jeopardy, but
I didn't either.
Recording has already gone a little long. So, Adara, thank you so much for letting us catch up with you. It's always a pleasure and an honor to have you on. It was great to hear about your experience in Set 4 championships, and I mean Set 3 championships. And it was just fun to talk about Set 4. So, if people want to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, X. I will always call it Twitter, at Ochem102. And I am all over Discord as Adara of Lorcana, both in the Lorcana HQ as well as the official Discord.
And I did want to.
There was a couple of things during the stream today in the reveals, there was a couple of bits of news. This is very important for people who may want to know. The app with all the new cards will not be available when the set drops. It's probably going to take to closer to the end of the month. So if you're waiting for the app to drop with all the cards, you're going to have to wait a little extra. So that's the bad news. And then also for the people going to challenges like to Atlanta and Lille, apparently we will be getting more information about prizing and side events and all that kind of information going forward, hopefully within the next week or so, from what I understand. That's what Rochelle said. So more information is coming for those of you who are looking forward to going to Atlanta and or Lille.
All right. And if you liked what you heard, you can follow us on YouTube. You can subscribe to us on the podcasting platform of your choice. You can find me on the website formerly known as Twitter at Citizens of Lorcana. And James, where can they find you?
You can find me everywhere online at Dan Regal. And well, just as of yesterday, we are now in Comic-Con season. So you can check out every Tuesday night live or follow us on your favorite podcasting platform. The San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blogs, SD Concast, where we cover all the news and exclusives and everything every week for San Diego Comic-Con. So if that's something you're interested in, check it out. I think that's it.
Yep. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.